just as people are trickling in, so just want to say hi to everyone. Welcome to another CodeBase on the Couch. It's been a while since we've done one of these webinars. We're trying to kind of tailor the webinars a bit more tail end of the year. I think people are starting to get a bit of what we call Zoom fatigue or Zoom gloom. So, but yeah, it's great to see you all. My name is Vanessa. I'm based up at One CodeBase in Aberdeen within the One Tech Hub. So I don't know if anyone who's familiar with CodeBase. We're kind of one of the UK's biggest tech clusters. We kind of work with startups all over the UK, and CodeBase on the Couch as a webinar series, we've been doing it since, I guess, April, which seems like a lifetime ago now, but we kind of designed this kind of webinar series to keep the community connected together. Very, very big on community, kind of keep them up to date with what's happening, give people a platform as well to talk about the things that they want to talk about and share cool things that's happening, you know, around them. And yeah, it's just been a really great place because, you know, with back in the days, we would have had to travel 3-4 hours to go and see a speaker, and now we can kind of enjoy it in the comfort of our own home. So that's kind of the aim of the webinars. Yeah, before we get started, there will be a Q&A session with Christian at the end of his presentation. So feel free to use the chat and the Q&A functions at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions during Christian's session, then that's absolutely fine, pop them in as well. And then we'll get them answered at the end. So any burning questions that you've got, Christian is ready to answer. So yeah, I'll pass over to Christian just now. If you're ready, Christian, to get started on your talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, Andrew Haw. I know Andrew Haw, he's a good friend of mine. Jen, Nicholas and Susan, and great to be speaking with you as well, Vanessa. So I thought I'd just give a wee bit of background to me, to my background, and then launch into what we're trying to achieve with Pawprint, and share how Pawprint works and our plans for it as a business, which I'm very excited about. So a bit of background. So I'm an Aberdonian linguist, and I set up the translation business Lingo24 almost 19 years ago. Grew it internationally, and we set up operations in multiple countries, weird and wonderful countries like Romania, the Philippines, Panama, the Netherlands, and so on. We grew to over 10 million of revenue, worked with customers such as eBay, Patagonia, Adidas. So lots of exposure to how world-class businesses manage translation and localization. And then a couple of years ago, I guess I'd always had this yearning to do something that had a real sense of purpose to it. And my dad had what he would call his "oh sugar lumps" moment about climate change, and said to me, you know, Christian, I think I was complaining about Brexit at the time, and he was saying Brexit and Donald Trump and all these other things that are going on are really just pimples that will go away. And whereas climate change is something that will have huge ramifications for people, and in particular for younger generations. I've got 3 young kids, and it usually takes me a while to listen to what my dad has to say and act on it. But on this occasion, I thought, no, he's right. Something's got to be done. And I just started looking into how I could personally better understand my impact on the planet, how I could, you know, measure, understand, and reduce my carbon footprint. And I found that there were tools available, you know, to measure your carbon footprint. But there wasn't anything that was really easy to use. There wasn't anything that was personalized. And there wasn't something that felt like a sort of companion on an ongoing basis, in the way that, you know, you might use an app like Calm to support your mental health on an ongoing basis, or you might use a money dashboard to look after your financial side, or you might use Fitbit for your physical health. And I thought, wouldn't it be good if something like that existed? So I went about discussing that initially with people I knew, talked to investors about whether they thought there was an opportunity. I got in touch with Mike Berners-Lee, who's the author of How Bad Are Bananas, which helps people understand the carbon footprint of everything. And we then set about building the Pawprint application, which I'm delighted to let you all know we launched publicly this week, and I'm hoping you'll all give it a spin and give us some feedback at some point. We then ran a crowdfunding campaign. So having raised angel investment from 50 top business people, entrepreneurs, execs, professional investors, we decided that we wanted this to become a movement. We wanted to for people to feel a sense of ownership in it, and much in the way that a Brewdog have done in beer around sustainability. We know a lot of people care about this topic and want the business world to be doing more. So we opened it up on Crowdcube, and over 1,000 people put in amounts ranging from £10 to, I think the largest was £15,000 to support what we're doing. And since that closed in early lockdown, we've been concentrating on getting the product together, and as I say, it's now ready to go. So without further ado, I think I'll just give you a quick whistle-stop tour of the product. Here we go. I'm sharing my screen now. Let's see. Got to move some things around. Okay, can everybody see your Pawprint? Vanessa, can you see that all right? Excellent. So the way that the product works is we ask you several questions about your lifestyle in these areas of diet, home, travel, and other spending. And then we calculate what your Pawprint is. Now, this is measured in carbon dioxide equivalent, which is, so it's carbon dioxide, as people are very familiar with, but it also includes other greenhouse gases, such as methane, because those have a huge impact. And I guess I was looking for a number that to work on, because I think it's really useful to have a number to help quantify the relative impact of the different things we could do. My dad, for example, was obsessing over changing his toothpick from a plastic toothpick to a wooden toothpick. But at that point, I think he realized, and I realized as he told me, you can worry about these small things, and it's good to be aware of them and to do everything that we can. But it's probably more useful to focus on the things that have real impact. So you can see this is actually my Pawprint. I'm embarrassed to say I'm still above the UK average. And we also express it in terms of miles traveled by car, because I guess it's easier for people to relate to something like that than just give them the weight in carbon dioxide equivalent. So if my lifestyle was just driving in a car, it would be the equivalent to driving about 24,000 miles in terms of emissions. What the Pawprint app then allows people to do is go into the detail of it. So for example, you can go into diet and you can see that I am quite a lot over the average in terms of the amount of air freighted food, but I've been trying to cut down on my meat intake, so I'm quite a lot below the average there. And so this helps people to quantify what's going on. So that's the first thing that you get when you sign into the Pawprint app, and that's available now to all of you at pawprint.eco. Please do have a shot. If I want to reduce my Pawprint, I then go into the challenges section, and I can show you. You can see that I've got some active challenges here about how I work on the temperature. I've got some others here around consuming a bit less lamb, using library books, boiling the water I need for a day in advance, and so on. But the way in which people find their challenges is coming in, and I'm going to have to just switch you around here a bit, Vanessa. You come in here and you're given a range of different challenges with the corresponding paw points that you might earn from them. And you can filter these with other lifestyle goals you might have. So for example, you might want to be a bit healthier, and you might, and you might want also to save some money. Where's the money saving one? Here. So if I select those filters and then go back here, I can see challenges that fit, those criteria. So the first one that comes up is around brightening your day. And this is really something that may not be possible for everyone, but for some people, if you can design your workspace around natural light, that is proven to be healthier for you. It means that you need to use less energy in lighting the space, and you can therefore reduce your Pawprint. And we give you a measure for that here. You then accept the challenge, you would mark progress, say, yeah, I did it. You can set it up for reminders. And that then, once you mark it as complete, gets locked in. So it's knocked 9 kilograms off my my Pawprint, and it's also, and that's the equivalent of 16 miles. And I've also earned 25 paw points from that. Now, what are paw points? You may well find yourself asking. Paw points are our currency. And you can see here, we've got Bjorn the bear, our polar bear mascot with a crown on. And this is our, so I've earned 180 paw points from my efforts. So in time, we're expecting that people will be able to use paw points for, again, like redeeming for deals on low carbon products, services and activities. But for now, you can use them to vote supermarket style on how we give our climate friendly charitable donations. So whether that's Trees for Cities, Sustrans, or adopting a polar bear with the WWF, you can spend those points here. There we go. And if I go back to the dashboard, actually back here, you can see, actually, let's see, I've not quite done enough on this account, but you'll be able to track your Pawprint over time, invite a friend, and we're very soon going to be introducing group functionality so people can see, they can work on it, whether it's at home, at work, or in other groups that they're part of, they can work on it. So that was, I guess, my whistle-stop tour of the product. And as I say, that's available for consumers now. We are just starting to roll out the business program. And the business program is about how we can support employers in engaging their people on the sustainability agenda. For businesses, sustainability is a huge priority, but it's very difficult for them to make all the changes they want to make unless their people understand what has real impact. And so businesses are able, through the Pawprint platform, to create different groups who can take on these different challenges, to give customized challenges that may be relevant to their business, to provide incentives for their different businesses. And as we develop this platform further, we're going to allow businesses to harvest ideas from their employees as to things they can do as a business to be more eco. We're going to allow them to gather sentiment analysis from their businesses on, like a joke, where their business sits on a scale from Greta to Donald in terms of how green they are and why, and what should that business start and keep doing. And also to measure their Pawprint related to the business. So in normal times, how they travel to work, how they travel for work, how their place of work is heated, and so on. So we've launched what we call our Pioneers program, whereby early businesses will come to us and help us trial this, roll it out with their people, and shape it over time. Brewdog are the first pioneers. We're going to have up to 10 businesses acting as pioneers with us. Generally larger businesses in the sort of 500 to 5,000 employee range. And so it's an exciting time. We're trying to work out with these businesses, how can we engage people, not just now, but on the long term, in the huge challenge of making all of our lives, both at home and at work, more sustainable. So yeah, that Vanessa is really, I don't want to sort of drone on. I'd love to welcome your and other people's questions.
Great.
Yeah.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for that, Christian. It was actually really interesting to kind of see the app, I guess, in action for those who've not had the chance to download it yet. But thank you so much, Christian. We'll give you a little round of applause for the presentation. Yeah, if anyone has any questions to ask, please ask away. We've got quite a small group, so it's going to be a nice little kind of fireside chat going on here. So yeah, we'd like to open the discussion to everyone else, and if you've got any comments or views or suggestions for Christian, then but by all means please leave them with us. But no, it was actually, yeah, it was really cool to kind of see that. So what are you're talking about kind of rolling this out into businesses and things like that, kind of what's your kind of next steps on top of that? Like, are you still working on kind of building the platform, making it more into community? Because I guess some people might not know how do I even do this? I might need support. Is there like people out there that are also kind of going through the same thing? Like kind of what's your kind of next steps for that?
Yeah. So we have a community site at the moment, and that at the moment is just accessible to our investors and the first people who joined us on the wait list. But we're going to be building that into the application itself, so that we can, so that people can be supported on the journey. It's really important to us that the tone of what we do is non-judgmental and friendly, because I think when people get their Pawprint, they often feel a bit guilty and unsure, where to start. So we want to support them through the app, but also through the community. Bjorn the Bear, he says, don't beat yourself up when you get your Pawprint. And then he says it's about small steps. It's about what's right for you. So that's the sort of spirit that we're trying to have coursing through the veins of Pawprint. Yeah.
Definitely feel I did one of those quizzes where you put in how many miles you've traveled and all that stuff, and yeah, you just end up feeling absolutely guilty because you've traveled this many destinations and you've used this much, like you've emitted this much stuff, and yeah, it can be quite daunting. But I really like the branding that you've done with Pawprint, and was that kind of your intention from the beginning of launching this platform? Where you was that kind of your intentions throughout to kind of make it more of a non-judgmental space for people?
Yeah. I mean, that was my approach anyway, because I think historically some approaches have been a bit judgmental and a bit, looking down on people because of things that it's not difficult for them to change about their lifestyles, whether that's for cultural or practical reasons. And I think we want to be the opposite of that. We want to be a broad church in which we welcome everyone and, and respect anyone who's trying to make small steps is, to be applauded. And I think also Mike Berners-Lee, who's obviously one of my heroes, his book reflects that tone. It's very much non-judgmental. It's full of humor. It's real. We all have a carbon footprint. We all live, and we all should enjoy our lives, for goodness sake. It's just about starting to understand where are the bits that have disproportionately negative impact, I guess, on the planet, and perhaps don't actually make us all that happy, and therefore we can willingly forgo those things. It's unbelievable to me that we've known so much about all of this science for so long, and yet it's not become widely known. And so with Pawprint, we're trying to make that process, dare I say it, fun. So yeah, looks like we've got some questions coming through, Vanessa. Do you want me to?
Yeah, we've got one from Nicholas. He says, "Hi Christian, do you see an opportunity for Pawprint to eventually offer or introduce users to green products to improve their score, such as providers who supply 100% electricity?" That's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the business model at the moment is to work with businesses on behavioral change. So it's a B2B to C model. There we go. Had to get that right. In that we're selling to the business because they have objectives around supporting their people on this and changing their own businesses. That's the first stop, and that's akin to what our non-exec Tom Sermon did in the space of health and well-being with his business, which is now Virgin Pulse. So we know how that business works. I've validated that business with conversations with about 30 different businesses now, and BrewDog are committed. We have got about 5 or 10 other businesses who I believe will commit in the next month, and so on. But in time, there are 2 other ways in which I think we'll make money. One will be around insights. So we're going to have, if lots of people use this, we're going to have lots of insights as to the sorts of changes that people want to make but struggle to make. So a good example might be travel in normal times. If people in one part of a city tend to, there are lots of people driving for work from one part of the city to another part of the city, and that's, but they're willing to consider low carbon options, cycling, lift sharing in normal times, public transport again in normal times. Then we might be able to surface that information, work with councils and private sector people and then make that a reality and pay for that insight. That's our second revenue stream. And the third revenue stream is exactly what you're saying, Nicholas. So where there's an opportunity, where we know that somebody wants to make a change, and we're the ones who have identified that for them, it would be seamless for us to then broker that deal and take a small cut there. And I think that's, you know, an ethical way of doing it, and it's in line with our mission, which is about empowering people to fight climate change and accelerating the transition to a low carbon future. So yeah, it's you're right on the money there. I think in terms of the business model, the problem with doing that as a first step is that those are relatively small sums that you would generate from that, and so we would have to have, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people using the platform, and obviously it's difficult to get to that. So, but we'll do it.
Cool. No worries. We've got another question coming from Susan. She says, you've done phenomenally well getting Mike and Brewdog involved. Did it help that you already had a proven track record with Lingo 24?
I think it helps that you've got experience. I didn't know, I'm not sure how much those things help directly with both of those relationships. With Mike Berners-Lee, I asked to meet him after one of his talks. He turned me down, but he said that he would have a video call with me. And in that video call, we got on really well. And I went down with some of the team to meet with him and his team in Lancaster Uni. And over time, we've built up a really good relationship, a really good level of trust. And he's been incredibly supportive. So I don't think the Lingo stuff did help. I think the Lingo stuff definitely helped with raising investment, because I had lots of business connections and I built up those relationships at a time when I wasn't asking them for money. So people knew me, and the team helped as well. We've got such a good team. Ex-Skyscanner, Wood Mackenzie guys, Tom Sermon I've mentioned, Sarah Ronald from Nile. So people knew that this was a serious team that was experienced in business. And then with Brewdog, I think it probably did help, but not hugely. I didn't know the guys there that well. We're getting to know them a lot better now, because we're so aligned. You know, they're committed to being carbon negative, doing everything they can, and we are supporting that in multiple ways. Some of which I can tell you about now, and some of which I can't tell you about now. So it's all very exciting.
It's kind of like kind of you brought up the idea, and then was it Brewdog that kind of then started to align, or was it kind of just your ideas just aligned together? Because do you take a lot of inspiration from Brewdog or vice versa? Like, how did kind of that take place? Because you mentioned Brewdog a few times in your talk.
Yeah. So they were already doing stuff, no doubt about it. I think they were doing a lot of stuff to do with the manufacturing side. I think they weren't yet. They have a workforce who are very keen on sustainability and so on, but they wanted to do more to engage people, and they saw the opportunity of Pawprint to engage people more. So I would say our way of doing it was definitely new to them, and the way we use it with their wider community. I guess I was the one who introduced them to Mike Berners-Lee. And so their way of measuring personal impact, I think has been inspired a lot by Mike, in the same way as we've been inspired by Mike. So yeah.
Great. We have a question from Jen, who came through in the Q&A. So she said, "Hi Christian, I completed my Pawprint when the preview came out last week. Really impressive, and definitely makes you think about how you can change your actions. I made a mistake in answering questions from a family rather than an individual point of view though, and my Pawprint was huge, as I thought I had 2 cars, so I've had to go back in. Just thinking about young people, I have a 16-year-old who is very keen to support climate change activity. I wonder if there are different UK averages for different age groups, so students, for example, who might not drive, could still be doing better than others their age and see their impact that way. So my son might think he is way below average from the current questionnaire, but not be much better than the other 16-year-olds?
Yeah, interesting. Once we get, I'd love your son, Jen, to have a shot on it and just hear his reactions. You know, even if you could record that, that would be really useful insight, because we know that young people are very motivated about this. And we also know, you know, some of the feedback when we're displaying, I think you referenced this, the equivalent miles traveled per car, that doesn't resonate with everyone. A lot of, you know, young people who can't drive, or people in London who maybe travel around by public transport or cycling, want to have it expressed differently. I think the more people we get into it and the more feedback we get like that, the more that we'll be able to refine it and personalize it. At this stage, what we have, you know, we're at an exciting stage because it's, from a consumer point of view, it's the beginning of a massive experiment. And as with all experiments, the more people we can get in, the more partnerships we can do with, you know, celebs or sports organizations or whatever, to just get folk using it, get their feedback, and then we'll react to that and make sure that we make it more engaging for the people who want it, you know, the better. So, you know, I'm really excited to get feedback like that, and to get further feedback and to see where this goes. There's loads of uncertainty, but it's such a human thing, and it's, you know, there's so much to learn. So
for sure. What kind of challenges do you think we'll face? For example, like you mentioned, London, people tend to take public transport. What about, how do you feel about places that aren't, like the infrastructure isn't quite there yet? For example, the Highlands, or, you know, as we move further north, the rail lines or the bus services aren't as efficient, so people then tend to travel by car. Kind of what challenges do you then face? Will that be with the data that you'll get from people completing the app, kind of give you a bit of a wider sense of like patterns throughout the country?
yeah, it definitely will. And it was great when we did the crowdfunding, and we got a map with pins for all of the different investors, and we had almost the whole of the UK. We had 10% of the investors were international, but the UK-based investors we had the country really well covered. So we should get some good insight. There was a little bit in area around Stranraer where we didn't have many folks. If any of you know anyone in Stranraer, please do get them to have a shot. But yeah, we're gonna get a lot of insight, and we've got a few different partnership discussions underway to drive more people in there, and those insights are going to be huge. I think folk in in rural areas. My parents live in rural Aberdeenshire, and they're gutted because they're pretty eco people, but their Pawprint's actually quite high, partly because of having to, you know, the way they shop, and partly because of the size of the house for just 2 people living in it, because of when grandkids come and the like. I think definitely different solutions in rural areas. I think a lot of that will come down to sharing resources and working closely as a community. And that's one of the things that I love about the low carbon future that I see, that I think there's going to be something of a return to old fashioned values around communities working together. Some of the community spirit that we've seen in many neighbourhoods during COVID, I think will come out as people see that that's in our collective interests and is an integral part of the low carbon future. So yeah, interesting times.
Very interesting. We have another question come through from Jen. She says, do you see this as an international business opportunity, or is it UK focused?
Yeah, I definitely see it as an international business opportunity. The insight from Tom at Virgin Pulse is that the businesses who are our customers were much more, they want to do something that's for everyone in their organization, you know, just as relevant in Ghana or Greece as it is in Great Britain. And we want it to be international. It is, and obviously with my background in translation and localization, I've got a few people who know what they're doing in that space. It is more tricky than some businesses when it comes to internationalization, partly because the energy mix in each country is different if we want to be as scientifically valid in every market. Partly because conventions around things like how people boil water, you know, people not using a kettle in some countries and people not using radiators in other countries being tricky. But the aspiration is absolutely to make it international, to make it as impactful as possible, to make it as engaging as possible. And the mission, which is about empowering people to fight climate change and to make a difference, is absolutely an international one. So yeah.
Hope that's answered your question, Jen. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to ask. We do have, we're here till 3, so we've got plenty of time for any more questions that you've got. But yeah, there was something that I kind of looking through watching you do the platform, kind of what were your kind of main challenges when thinking about this platform, thinking about what you wanted to achieve, like kind of what was your massive kind of walls that you kind of hit along the way?
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity in this whole project. So there's the climate science, how you calculate the carbon dioxide equivalent for individuals, but also for each and every challenge. There's a load of complexity in that. In behavioral science, there's a lot of complexity as well. So we're using the insights from a gentleman called B.J. Fogg, who wrote a book called Tiny Habits. It's about doing, trying to do little things to start feeling like you're making a difference. And there's complexity, I think, around any decent-sized software project that it's unpredictable. How long it will take and what resources are needed and the best resources for it. I think the big challenge we face now is going to be around that ongoing engagement. Once people have got their Pawprint and they've worked on it for a few months, how do we make sure that they stay engaged? And we think that that's going to be a social thing, how we, different challenges. We think there might be a commercial element to that, to keep people feeling like that they can, get good deals out of it and that sort of stuff. But the truth is that there's a lot of uncertainty there, and we're going to have to experiment with things, speak to our users, and learn and adapt. Yeah.
What, because how we mentioned earlier about places that have not great infrastructure in terms of public transportation and things. When you kind of get that data from all over the UK, kind of what are your plans with that? Would you be working with kind of local councils, or trying to implement new bus routes or frequent bus routes? Like, kind of what would be your plan once you have all that information from the users?
Yeah, we want to be very collaborative. We've had some really strong interest from councils in using this to support their already existing objectives around becoming lower carbon cities. And some cities are getting really ambitious in terms of, their position in the low carbon economy, which is great. Other councils have also said that they might offer incentives through the platform. So they wouldn't, give you money off your council tax, but they might give you reductions on council services if you're a lower carbon citizen, because it's in line with what I think the vast majority of large, small, private, public sector businesses want us to transition quickly and more seamlessly to being lower carbon citizens. So we're going to be friendly with lots of people, I hope.
Yeah. That would be great to kind of come up with some collaborations with kind of working in partnership with kind of councils and things like that, because I think they kind of need it's hard for councils to then gather the data themselves, and you've got this platform where you're reaching across the UK with kind of what do they need to do, trends and things like that. So I think that's really great. What are you kind of, we're living in a current COVID world. Everything's wrapped in plastic. People are using disposable masks. Kind of what's your view on that, kind of moving forward when, we're going to have to be a bit more careful. People are then reusing single-use plastics and materials. Whatever Greta Thunberg said a couple of months ago has kind of gone out the window now. Like, what are your views?
Vanessa, is your question around the sort of COVID impact on Pawprint generally? Or?
Yeah, there's going to be a kind of increase of use in these kind of disposable masks and things. Kind of, how does that affect what your kind of business goals?
Yeah, I think so. I think the COVID impact is sort of swings and roundabouts. You know, there are some massive gains from a climate perspective in that people, like the working from home thing, there's a massive gain in terms of people realizing they don't need to travel all around the world or even into an office and so on. And then you get these losses like the one you say about people having to use more disposable stuff because for reasons of hygiene. I think overall it's a net win for the climate because people are more aware. You know, they've seen some of these phenomena like the fog clearing in Chinese cities, the dolphins returning to the Venetian canals, and they've seen like that there is incontrovertible evidence that human activity has huge impact on the climate, and people have been able to measure that in CO2 terms. They've been able to see, you know, the different visuals on that on smog in bigger cities and all that sort of stuff. So we now, like, not even Donald Trump, I think, could argue that we don't have an impact on our planet. And I think also people have started to think a bit more, you know, if we're all sort of shrunk back into our homes and living with our families, we're thinking a bit more about the type, what's important to us: family, health, sense of community, the supply of food, you know, and starting to spend a bit less on stuff that is sort of nice to have, less core. So some existential questions about the type of society we want to live in are happening now, and I think those questions combined with the climate agenda, which, you know, there's a potential global threat there. There's a link with, you know, if we've got as humans, if we've got our relationship with nature out of kilter, that makes pandemics more likely. I think overall we're in the climate, people who care about this will feel that we've got you know, a stronger position in the public mindset. I think, but I'm biased. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I've always been kind of conflicted with kind of these kind of things. I have made a bit of a personal mission to cut down on meat. So I completed veganuary, and that kind of fueled my kind of need to want to reduce my meat intake. So that was kind of my main goal, because I was a massive meat eater. And then obviously COVID happened, and, you know, you see these things on social media, on the news about, you know, all these disposable wrappings, especially where we were working with events. We had to single wrap everything, and like the rustle of plastic it's a noise that just gets me. So I don't know. I think you're right in terms of, you know, imbalance with other things. We are probably looking at is probably stays the same in terms of that, but human nature changes every single day. You know, we didn't realize that we were going to be in this kind of still lockdown 6 months later. So yeah, I'm a very conflicted human being. I try my best, and sometimes it's just not enough.
We all are, and yeah, yeah, but I do think it's edged up. I see Susan's asked a question there.
Would it be wrong to say that for Pawprint there is a positive out of COVID as more people are reflecting on what's really important? Which I think touched on what you were saying before.
Yeah, that's my view, is that people are wanting to get things, and then, you know, talked about the community spirit side as well. I don't know what it's been like in all of your streets and neighbourhoods, but where I live in Edinburgh, I've got to know my neighbours a lot better. They've supported me with stuff. I've supported them. It feels, I could imagine now doing more as a neighbourhood, sharing tools, sharing. I'd like us to get a cargo bike to share, because one of the car trips that I have to make from time to time is to the supermarket. But if we had like a street cargo bike that we could share, you know, wouldn't have to do that. So yeah, I definitely think so. It's just people are obviously, people have got different concerns. You know, lots of people will be in economic difficulty with the recession. Lots of people are juggling kids and work and the health of different people. And it's where the climate stuff sits in people's agenda. I think for those who have got the bandwidth to think about it and do stuff, it probably has risen further up. And that's a lot of people. And if we can support them at Pawprint, that's good.
What are your kind of thoughts in terms of, you know, people who do want to make those small changes, but those small changes might mean an increase in certain food bills or certain other things, like they're having to buy more eco-friendly products that might be a bit more expensive than, for example, a plastic toothbrush or whatever. Like, kind of what are your kind of views on that? You know, what else can the app do in terms of supporting them? Maybe not in terms of monetary, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we, you can select, you know, money savers within the filters on the app to try and find things that save money. I think there are lots of opportunities for saving money, and when it comes to transport, I think there are lots of opportunities when it comes to food as well. And I think that's actually a common misconception, that there are definitely areas that are really expensive if you want to get your Pawprint down as low as possible, like insulating your house fully. You know, I got a quote for that, and it was it was over £10,000. It was phenomenal. So there are things that it's tricky to do, but there's a hell of a lot you can do, and a lot of these little wins they're small steps. They're not things that are beyond us. You know, it's about harking back to old-fashioned values. I think about my grandmother, you know, who grew up in the north of Norway and was when Norway was a poor country and at tough times, and she was extremely thrifty. She used every resource that was available to her and made things go a long way. And you know, one of the challenges we've got in Pawprint is if you're a meat eater, cooking a whole chicken or 2 chickens in a oneer, and then you know, rather than cooking lots of small bits of meat as a way of reducing energy usage. And it may sound like a silly little thing, but things like that really add up, and you can make them fun, and you can make them into a game if you are so inclined. So
yeah, how's your team kind of, I'm guessing they've all kind of completed their Pawprint. Like, how are you guys working together, kind of like sharing ideas of what you could do? Like you said, in one go.
It's quite funny. So if you have a meal together, because we obviously all know the science and we know the impact of meat and dairy, and so you're sitting with someone just waiting to see whether they're going to go plant-based, or not. Yeah, no, I mean, everyone's made some changes, some more than others. I think dietary ones we've definitely made, and I think the travel ones as well. You know, people are really trying to cut down on car usage. Some stuff is, you know, is counterintuitive. So there's a lot of hype around electric cars, and one of the team members was thinking about getting an electric car, but having looked at the data is now not going to get that, because it's actually much more efficient for many of us to run the cars that we've got into the ground, because of the embedded carbon in getting a new, like a Tesla or another electric car is really significant. So it's better just to stick with your car, try to use it less than to get a brand new electric car. So there's lots of stuff that you can let yourself off the hook on, and crucially, you know, for a half Norwegian Aberdonian, save money on. You know, a lot of this is encouraging you not to spend money on loads of stuff, and when you do spend money, to spend it on stuff that's going to last and save you for the long term. Using services like Timpson's to repair what you've got and make it last. So it's, you know,
what's been the biggest step that you've taken in terms of trying to reduce your Pawprint? I know you mentioned taking smaller steps, but what could have been the biggest thing?
Well, the biggest one for me would be flights. I used to fly quite a lot, both for work and for holidays, and now I haven't done for a long time, and I wonder. I'm not yet ready to say I'm never going to fly again, but I'm certainly ready to say that I'm flying 5% of what I was doing before, and it's the frequent flyers who have a real impact there. So that's one. So traveling less generally, and getting the train when I need to, or biking if I can. I've switched out dairy in quite a big way. So I struggle with cheese. I love my cheese, but in terms of milk, I don't have dairy milk at all now. Just tend to have pea-based milks. Actually, there's one called Sprout that I quite like. But it's lots of little things, and it's about what's right for individuals. Like nobody at Pawprint is saying you must do this or you should. It's about what's right. It's about what's right for you, and we're just trying to help you work out what's right for you.
I think that's really great, because you do feel a lot of immense pressure from society, social media, to cut out all these things, to be a vegan, to cut out dairy, to travel less, to walk everywhere. It's there's just this overwhelming information kind of being thrown at you at once. So it's really great that this platform kind of makes it about you, like what works for you. Okay, you don't have like good transport links, but you could do this instead. And I think that's really great that it kind of offers that. You don't really see a lot of that floating about like the media these days. So yeah, it's really great to hear that.
Yeah.
We do have time for some more questions if anyone has any before we wrap up. I'm sorry, there's some rustling. My rabbit's going crazy.
Oh, pets are a very interesting one, aren't they? Rabbits are pretty low carbon, but cats, and apparently pet food accounts for 20% of global meat production.
Oh, really? Well, it's a good thing rabbits don't eat meat. So
yeah, rabbits are
the tip for everyone is to get yourself a rabbit.
a low carbon pet option. And yeah, that I saw recently on Crowdcube, there's an insect based, because with cats and dogs, they are, what's the word, obligate carnivores. So they have to eat meat. Basically, they won't eat. You can't try and feed we've got cats. You can't feed them grass or whatever. So there's now but insects are much lower carbon than meat. So if you can feed cats and dogs insect-based plant food, that's quite a good one for your Pawprint. And Susan's asking about whether we've got pets on the Pawprint. So yes, that we are looking at adding them in at the moment, because they, in a household, each individual should be having their fair share of that contribution. So, but we've got to be very careful, because we don't want to upset cat and dog owners,
Well, that's true. I'm glad kind of my rabbit has kind of segued into the pet conversation. She's happy over there now, knowing that she's low carbon. But I'm glad to hear that. I'm really happy about that, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I think about the things that I feed her and the things that I buy for her, and she's, she eats hay, which is basically dry grass, so it's helping me.
It's not been flown in from Peru, has it, Vanessa?
No, it hasn't. So very local. So. But no, thank you so much. If Jan's got to dash. She said thank you so much. Really interesting from a business point of view. Lots of great eco tips as well. It's a great ethical business, so lots of luck with it. So thank you so much for joining us, Jen. And thank you so much to everyone for your questions. It's been really kind of interesting to hear more about the platform, more about yourself, and your plans for the future, I guess. So yeah, we'll do a virtual round of applause to you, Christian.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
sure my rabbit will also be cheating you on.
Can you do me a favor? Can you do like a Twitter post with your rabbit saying?
I will. Yes.
Yes,
I'll do it, and I'll tag you in it. Nicholas says, brilliant chat, thanks. My dog was listening also and says insect food is a no-go.
Well, you win some, you lose some, and
exactly.
Obviously it's all about small steps for your dog as well, Nicholas. So thanks for joining.
But if you're happy for me to share the platform, I can do it on the post event email so everyone can check their own Pawprint and see what small changes they can make as well. But yeah, thank you so much to you, Christian, and to everyone for joining us. There is going to be another CodeBase on the Couch next week with Zoe from Future X talking about company culture. So if you're really interested in that, that'll be up on the website tomorrow afternoon, I think. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Christian, for joining us. And I hope you and everyone else also have a really great day. So thank you so much.